Good morning and welcome back to New Dawn. And as lawmakers begin voting and debate on the Finance Bill of 2024 today, Kenyans are set to hold protests outside Parliament to dissuade them from passing the bill. Now, as of yesterday, Monday, protesters had already been advised on how to dress, urged to carry a placard, a bottle of water. A code of conduct was also released asking protesters to be peaceful and maintain their cool even when harassed. Now, police, in preparation for the march, which has been notified, in which notice had been given to them, have been holding meetings to plan how they will handle these protests. Dr. Hassan, this is not the first time, actually, in Kenya's history that we're seeing this Occupy Parliament protest, or at least the name itself. And in 2020, we even had LSK. And Theodore will be telling us about it, stage an Occupy Parliament demo after Parliament failed to pass the two-thirds gender rule. But just that statement that police are holding meetings to plan how they will handle the protests. What are your expectations on the demos and how the government will handle these demos?
Michelle, according to our Constitution 2010, Kenyans are allowed to freely conduct peaceful demonstration. That is something that Kenyans have been enjoying all through. And it is indeed something that they will continue to enjoy unless we have a referendum to change that, which some of the political leaders, sometimes when the situation changes, they will opt, they will think that they will want to change that so that they gag Kenyans. But in preparation for any demonstration, you will always find in a crowd people who are having other agendas. And therefore, in containing that, I think our law enforcement officers must definitely prepare themselves to face any eventuality. But we expect that according to the way the Code of Conduct has already been released, Kenyans will going to conduct themselves in a very peaceful manner to air out their concerns based on the tax laws that are being amended for 2024, which they think that it is at the hand of their members of parliament, and their members of parliament must comply to things that are not suitable for the common Kenyans. So I don't think if it is an issue for Kenyans security and law enforcement to prepare themselves for any eventuality. But again, history also repeats itself. Sometimes when we go to the streets, and we don't actually cause any chaos, or there's no any insecurity among the demonstrators, pressure mounts up, impatience occur among the two quarters, both the security officers as well as the demonstrators, and they may end up causing some violence in the demonstration. And therefore, it's something that Kenyans should impress in terms of ensuring that they don't attack, properties of people, outside the, within the vicinity of their demonstration area. They don't destroy our properties. Parliament is actually Kenyans' property. It is a taxpayers' money that has been constructed with. So Kenyans, when they are demonstrating, they shouldn't destroy their own property. It's like someone going to burn his own house. So one other thing that I always tell is that there's a democratic way that Kenyans can put their issues out, and therefore we assume the pressures that Kenyans will going to apply, which I'm sure Law Society of Kenya has already said that they will also be part of the demonstration, is that they understand how the laws are being managed, and therefore they will be able to put things into perspective and making sure that pressure is mounted on parliamentarians. Right. But I think Kenyans are crying because of three things. One, tax is being collected. Two, we are not seeing the services on the other hand. Three, we see wastages in the government utilization. Four, we see we see Kenyans are being guided to the extent that we see there is a debt and we are still continue collecting more debt instead of putting aside all our expenditures and reducing our wastage. And corruption is the other one, actually, the third one. And therefore, if, for example, Mheshimiwa Sosion will tell me, if we provide, when he was a very serious man in Kenya, when he was a unionist, he used to talk about education. And when he speaks on education, he speaks as an authority. Of late, he doesn't speak as an authority, but that's on a lighter touch, my brother. And what we are saying is that if Kenyans get a free education, Kenyans get free health services, and Kenyans are provided with food, as he mentioned earlier on, then it is indeed our obligation to pay those taxes. Even if we will be even asking the government, how much do you need for taxes? But we see taxes measures or austerity has been put in place, collections are being strengthened, but we don't see the real services.
Right.
And that is what Kenyans are crying for. And therefore, if we must improve the livelihood of Kenyans, all those three things must be put into consideration. Corruption right. is the main thing that is burning this nation.
Then it's an important conversation to have. But Theory, some have called this current interest in the finance bill a civil awakening for Kenya's society and Kenya's democracy. And of course, pressure is on Parliament because parliamentarians are there to represent the sovereign will of the people. But then concern comes with how much more accountability can Kenyans demand when it is outside Parliament, when it is independent institutions mandated to fight corruption, for example, like the EACC, the DCI. And even as you answer to that, in the wake of this campaign, we've seen Kenyans even threaten to recall or impeach their member of parliament should they vote for the finance bill without amending clauses that they feel will be punitive on them. But then there are those who say that, you know, just recalling an MP is an unattainable dream because there are restrictions in the Constitution that essentially prevent the removal of a member of parliament.
The question of recall of a member of parliament, well, yes, the Constitution seems to contemplate that, but I think the legislation that has been crafted around it is very problematic to implement, and I mean, for obvious reasons. The most obvious being that that legislation has to be passed in Parliament. And
by
so
the same parliamentarians.
they wouldn't make it, it would be counterproductive to make it very easy to remove a member of Parliament. And also in terms of just governance and proper structures, it would also, besides just the selfish interests of Parliament to protect themselves, it would also be counterproductive if it becomes extremely easy to remove a member of Parliament, because then you can end up in a situation of continuous politicking that does not aid the country as much. But let me just say something. I think that we may want to see this real agitation that has been there in the public space, what it will translate to in the future. Because the reality of it is that, as politicians say, is that they listen to what they call the ground. This agitation that we have seen is what we may want to consider to be the ground. And so politics, to a certain extent, also has an element of self-preservation. So that as a member of Parliament, if your constituency and the general feeling around your bosses, who are the voters, is that certain things ought not to work in a particular way. For example, when we come to the period of electioneering, people look at it and say, you know, I come from this region, and this party appears to be the dominant party in this region. So for me to be elected, I need to be in this party to improve my chances of election. That is how politicians respond. And so I would be keen to see if this agitation is just informed by some of the provisions that are contained in the finance bill, or it is a real agitation that is going to continue outside the finance bill, because then that would mean at a political level that there are certain things we may begin to see that we would not have expected to see, because if, for example, this then signifies dissatisfaction among the populace in terms of the economic policies that the government has taken, the legislative proposals and initiatives that the government has taken, and the various projects that the government has undertaken, then you may begin to see a shift in how parliamentarians would be behaving towards government business. Right. But if it is as a result of the various proposals that have just been contained in the Finance Act, and if Parliament therefore, during the process of passing this finance, and I'm saying assuming that it actually passes, the Finance Act into law, takes into consideration and modifies the various proposals that have been there to a certain extent that the bill will then assume a sense of public acceptability, then you would want to see whether then people would be saying, okay, yes, they listened to us, they have passed the act with our views and they have taken on board. Of course, not everyone would be happy, but if a large percentage would say that what we were against has actually been modified and dropped and picked and this has been done, then you would want to see how will the public mood be. Right,
yeah. Right. And so then the question has been whether the Kenya Kwanza government has forgotten the promise to liberate the hustlers. And like you say, Kenya's tax to GDP ratio stands at 14%. The medium-term revenue strategy projects it to be at what, 20% to GDP in the next 3 years. And so President Ruto has promised a balanced budget within the next 2 years, essentially. What does that look like?
And that is why the finance bill is attracting a lot of debate, because we have to look at areas where to relieve the people at the bottom of the pyramid. You don't transfer tax burdens to them, but have an even tax collection system that will tackle areas that does not really affect the common man.
But eventually, the proposals in this finance bill
and the projection,
those at the bottom, the hustlers, they feel it seems that the poor are taking up more of the burden.
Not
in the
necessarily.
Taxation.
That one will require serious analysis and serious comparators. The problem is that this finance bill has been hijacked and has been turned into a political tool and is being subjected to some mob justice, which is not right. And I think the finance bill itself, will be amended, and the final product will be determined by Parliament, whether there are demonstrations or there are no demonstrations. The William Ruto government is very keen on delivering all the pillars and all the services for Kenyans. And for all Kenyans, it will be done through taxes and of course, managing a disciplined fiscal space that services debts. And I think the president is very clear about that and is very committed. So where the tax pains the citizens, of course, the citizens will raise their voices. But I think the key thing in the end is, what do the taxes
do for the citizens? All right.
For the citizens.
Well, let's take a look at what the citizens are saying
and for the parliamentary committee, for the parliament PG group, so that we don't pile pressures on individual positions of MPs. There are moments when there is collective party responsibility. Members of Parliament of Kenya Kwanza Alliance will have to sit and agree about what to do collectively. And that one, pressure or whatever from different directions will not work, because you have to take collective party position and deliver the bill as is, so that services are delivered.
For the benefit of the party or for the benefit of the citizens?
Yes, it's a party position. It is a party position.
Let's take some comments. Let's take some comments from Kenyans, because the question then is, who employed these members of parliament?
That is why you can see that Azimio, they've issued order to the members to vote down.
Yes, Hassan.
Does it mean Azimio do not want the members of parliament also to apply their mind?
No, let's give it to Dr. Hassan.
Even Azimio MPs, they will require electricity in their constituency.
Okay.
They will require roads. They will require all these services, more CDF. It is money. Where will the money come from? I think sometimes we have to be very realistic. We must get out of this bracket of demonizing taxes, and we talk about what taxes does, and we ensure that the taxes
Dr. Hassan, very briefly,
deliver service. And I think that is what the president stands for.
I think Mheshimiwa Sosion, sometimes he will want to put things into a different perspective. But the bottom line is that the moment you are elected in using a specific vehicle as a political party, and you come to the August House, that political party has no role, because the role of a member of parliament, is very clear: legislation, representation, and oversight. Anything outside that, and you cannot unpack yourself or part with the person you are supposed to oversight. The oversight goes to the executive. And therefore, if you are the one who is going to oversee, then you cannot.
Okay, let's take some feedback, gentlemen.
So I think it is important. No, you could. I mean, to run a house business, we will going to have the majority party and the minority party, but that does not compromise the mandatory role of a member of parliament
of representation.
Let's take
some comments from Kenyans on what they're saying this morning, as we asked you what your expectations are from the tabling of the finance bill this afternoon, where Kenyans will find out which proposals were struck out, which ones were added, which ones essentially will continue in the finance bill. So let's take some of those comments. And we have Samson Akisa here, who says, and what does our president and his men do? Tax us further into oblivion as the country is literally falling apart. Future generations will never forgive us if we let this slide. Brian Kipchumba says MPs are now taking hardline positions in line with their constituents. The proletarian revolution we have been talking about is finally coming to life. Nabado, until that bill is dropped, we will not rest. We have Wakesha, who says, your point 50 CASs, then taxes to death. And maybe Sosion will be answering to some of that. Mutegi. Mutegi says, dear Kenyans, friends, relatives, lost life, injured in useless demos, of which they benefited in no way. Some were getting nusumkate for someone. Today, be selfish. Go demonstrate for what matters to you. And some say, be on the right side of history. Karani Mutonga says, we're going to #Occupy Parliament for the pride of our nation, Kenya. Our freedom fighters and second liberators gave blood, toil, sweat and tears to win civil liberties against the government. This generation must stand up to safeguard these liberties. And Sydney says, last year, we wrote our views and participated in the in-person discussions. All of that was ignored, and the problematic clauses still remain in the proposed bill. That is why I will tokea Tuesday to Occupy Parliament. Ndio wabunge wa reject finance bill. And those are the three hashtags making grounds this morning ahead of that Occupy Parliament. Katwe said they tried to bring a fake war between Rigiji and Ruto. Kenyans only were glued on the finance bill. Kenyans are not fools. All right, let's begin with final comments, gentlemen. Theory, your comments to what Kenyans are saying. You know, there's someone saying, wananchi are now woke, and there's no stopping politics about the state of the economy now. What do you make of those Kenyans?
It's as I said, it's a wait and see. It might be a moment that awakens this country, a moment that then puts an end to political gerrymandering, and for people now beginning to say that we actually have a stake in the decisions and we have a voice, and that our voice can no longer be ignored, and we are going to use the various options that are available to make that voice known. Social media, as it is one of the biggest tools and influencers that shapes public opinion. You look at it, I think I've seen some accounts said to belong to Rigiji, to be in TikTok. Almost every other political leader is in TikTok, is in Twitter, and that means that they are recognizing the place of social media in shaping the discourse of this country. And for me, I would want to watch and see exactly today what happens, the final product, and the views, and the manner in which the Finance Committee will take on board the so many proposals that have been given to them. how they will deal with them, how Parliament is going to deal with them, and the aftermath of this, the final product that they will come with. Because going into the future, it may actually mark a change in the political direction that we have in this country, or it may just be, you know, a storm in a teacup that will pass if the Finance Act takes into consideration all the views that the members of the public have given. But I think it's going to be very interesting going into the future to try and see the kind of agitation that has been there, what it will translate to, and what is going to happen thereafter.
Right, so your final comments.
Yeah, Kenyans will only be escorting and sharing their opinions today towards Parliament. And they can turn up in millions, which is okay. And it's good to express your opinion, even in this space of strengthening public participation. But the key thing here is that we have a budget of 3.9 trillion that must be financed. We have a debt of 1.3 trillion that must be financed. We have public services that must be financed. It is this finance bill that is going to finance all those services and move our country forward. I want to urge Kenyans to shift the debate and focus on the utilization of funds, and we engage in more serious and thorough accountability. It has reached a time that we have in this country more organized civil societies that is able to conduct orderly civic education so that we can push the right agenda. The agenda being pushed now to shoot down the finance bill is not giving an answer to the country. The agenda that we should push moving forward, and I'm willing to join and participate in those groups, is accountability and utilization of these funds and delivery of the promises as contained in the budget and as contained in the Kenya Kwanza administration. I expect Kenyans now to put pressure to the Kenya Kwanza administration and audit the delivery of the various promises. That's what needs to be done, and the president is keen on that. So I think we are open as Kenya Kwanza to criticism from Kenyans and for pressure, and we want all Kenyans to participate in ensuring that the tax collected works for them.
Absolutely.
That is a big, that's the most important.
Your final comments, please.
Yeah, I think Kenyans have spoken. Voice of frustration has been demonstrated. And indeed, it is in the hands of their members of parliament who are the representative of all Kenyans. And as much as we will wish to continue taxing and, of course, taxing Kenyans, we will want to see things that are not taxable, should not be taxed, so that we look at the interest of Kenyans. Above all, parliamentarians must take their role effectively. They should not take Kenyans for a ride.
Absolutely, and so we keep an eye on that very important tabling of the finance bill today, as Kenyans keep their eye on Parliament and the elected members of Parliament for representation. Gentlemen, many, many thanks for being with us here today. We've been speaking to former LSK President Eric Theuri, leadership and governance expert Dr. Isaac Hassan, as well as former NAT Secretary General Wilson Sosio. And many thanks to you as well for watching and engaging in this conversation. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Good morning. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.